Two things are true at the same time. Number one, the Giants have an unacceptable third worst record in the National League. Number two, there's a ton of parity in the league and a little bit of a hot streak, and they could be right back in the race.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily San Francisco Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Giants, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. My name is Ben Kaspick, and on this show we provide daily episodes Monday through Friday talking about the San Francisco Giants in a way that's data-driven and rational, but also simple, passionate, and accessible to all. I'm a former contributor for the baseball statistics and analysis websites Beyond the Box Score and Rotographs. I've been podcasting about the Giants since 2015. I've been hosting the show for over 5 years, and I'm a lifelong Giants fan. Thank you for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including... So check us out there if you have not already, and please hit that subscribe button wherever it is that you're following the show. And I just realized that the first minute of this podcast, I apologize for that as well. And today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. It's the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/lockedonmlb and use code all lowercase Locked On MLB for a first deposit match up to $100. And coming up on today's show, the Giants have the third worst record in the National League, and that is just not acceptable for this team. It's just not. They have, they actually have one of the, they certainly don't have the third lowest payroll, and yet they have the third worst record. And so losing 5 in a row, that'll do that to you. And a lot of one-run games kind of mixed in there, a lot of close games. And as I said recently, when you have like essentially 2 starting pitchers right now in Logan Webb and Jordan Hicks, those aren't guaranteed wins. They're not going to win every time. And then it's such a problem because if, like what's happened now, they lost both of those starts over the weekend with Hicks and Webb in St. Louis as they got swept. They won the first game of this road trip and then went on to lose all 5 of their remaining games. Yeah, it's going to leave you with a record of 36-42 and have the third worst record in the National League. The caveat, the big kind of thing that's unsaid here is that, first of all, there's a huge gap between them and the next worst team. The Giants have a 8.5 game lead over that second worst spot. And the other thing is that they're 3 games out of having the 6th best record in the National League, just 3 games back. And so just a few days ago, the Giants were at the top of this heap in terms of this group of teams that are lumped together fighting for a wild card berth, essentially. And right now, the Padres hold that spot, the third and final wild card spot in the National League. I think it was always extremely unlikely and unrealistic that the Giants would capture the National League West. And so obviously you'd like to win the division, but that's becoming less and less realistic by the day as the Dodgers just continue to do Dodgers things, and the Giants are 11.5 out in the division. So I would just forget about it, like being realistic. But you're 3 games back in the wild card race. However, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teams between you and the Padres. There's 6 teams the Giants must pass to even get to the Padres, who are in that third spot. The good news is there's more than half the season remaining. The rougher news is that the task is taller now that you've lost 42 games already. And so already, even if this was the halfway point of the season, they'd be quote unquote on pace for 84 losses. And they're not yet at the halfway point of the season. There's still like 3 games to go until the halfway point. And so they just have to play better, like fast. And one of the big things here is that they're playing a team in the Cubs right now for a 4-game series. And the Cubs are one of those, like pretty much any team you play in the National League, maybe not any team. So you got the two teams at the bottom in the Marlins and the Rockies way out of it. And then you've got, the Dodgers, the Phillies, the Brewers, and the Braves. And then other than that, everyone else is kind of like within 4 games of each other. And it was even tighter than that until the Giants kind of slipped and let the Cardinals jump ahead. But like I said, a 4-game series upcoming at home against the Cubs. It's an important series, especially with the Dodgers coming into town next. So if you get beaten up by the Cubs, lose 3 out of 4, or heaven forbid, get swept by the Cubs here, and then you have to play the Dodgers, you're going to be in a bad way, and you're no longer going to be in a position of only being 3 or fewer games back. You're going to be like way down with a ton of teams ahead of you, and it will mean that the Cubs have pushed significantly ahead of you. So, there's just a lot riding on these games, Cubs and Dodgers with this homestand, and then they go to Atlanta to play a good Braves team, and then they go to Cleveland to play a Guardians team that is 49-26 this year, just having a really nice year, kind of unexpectedly to some degree, 49-26. And so Dodgers, Braves, Guardians all in a row after the Cubs makes this Cubs series even more important. And then after that, they come home for a little 6-game homestand, Blue Jays, Twins. So that's 3 consecutive American League teams they'll be playing. And then it's the All-Star break. And so I don't know. I just think, the Cubs series is just critical that they play better and try to win at least, 3 out of 4. Like, that would just go a long way. But it doesn't get any easier at all, because tonight, like, they don't have starting pitching right now. Everybody is hurt. The good news is, and we'll explain this or discuss this coming up in just a bit, but they've got some guys coming back. But for now, they've only got 2 starters. And so it's going to be Eric Miller starting the game. He's a reliever, so it's a bullpen game essentially, with Spencer Howard lined up to be the bulk guy. And on the other side, the Cubs have their best pitcher going in Justin Steele. And so, you're set up to be underdogs in game 1 of this series, and then that makes you set up to potentially fall to 36-43, with the Cubs getting better, losing 6 straight. And so you got to buck the trend here and just bear down and play better and try to win a baseball game. I mean, they haven't won since last Monday, right? It's been a full week since, let me just verify that. Their last win, and really that win was one where they easily could have lost. So they could have been swept on this entire road trip if they hadn't had this dramatic comeback 3-run homer in the 9th. But the pitching, I will just say again, like, let me just say starting with the Angels series, which was the last series of the homestand before they headed out on the road and played the Cubs and the Cardinals, they've allowed 8 runs, 4 runs, 6 runs, 6 runs, 5, 6, 6, 9, 5. So hello, I mean, my goodness, you're just giving yourself, you're making it hard on yourself every single day when you're. I mean, that's got to be. I'm actually gonna do the math here while like live on the air, because that's just not gonna be easy, because there's so much focus on the offense. But 8 runs allowed, 4 runs allowed, and like 4 seems like a low number at this point. 5 and 6 again, and 6 again, and then 9 and then 5. So that's 3, 6, 9 games. So they have allowed 6.11 runs per game over their last 9 games. So if you're allowing over 6 runs a game, you need to score 7 to win. And so quite simply, in my opinion, they just are having pitching problems, and that is what's causing them to lose or to make it hard on themselves each and every day. And it doesn't get any easier when you only have Logan Webb and Jordan Hicks is basically your starting rotation right now. So coming up in just a minute, we're going to get into why this could be a second half team because they do have guys scheduled to come back. We'll see if that works out for them, but they need those guys in the worst way. So we'll get into it in just a minute. And before we do, today's episode is brought to you in part by FanDuel. I love sports, as you obviously know. I love them so much, I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs in the NBA and NHL wind down, we get fewer games, and the sports aren't sportsing like I want them to. Well, at least we got baseball. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open up the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com/lockedon and start making the most of your summer. So I'm on FanDuel.com/lockedon right now, and I'm just checking out what are the odds here for the Giants facing the Cubs. And the Giants, as I mentioned, are underdogs because it's, a bullpen game for San Francisco with the Cubs ace going for them. So Giants, the odds here, money line at plus 102 and the spread at plus 1.5 for the Giants at odds of minus 176. Over under set at a low 7.5. So I might take the over on that. I don't know. Just hoping the Giants can bust out a little bit and maybe the Cubs in a non-ideal world kind of bust out against the Giants and their lack of pitching. So anyway, FanDuel is the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. Today's episode is also brought to you in part by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. Prize Picks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps on Prize Picks, it's just you against the numbers. And Prize Picks, obviously one of the most, the best aspects is that it's available to play in more than 30 states across the country, including California. And if you're looking for promotions, Prize Picks has you covered every week. Getting from lowering select players' stat projections, which we did the other day with a win using Logan Webb, with his strikeout projection number getting cut by 2 strikeouts, and we hit on that. So that's on Tuesdays to help your lineup hit. So for today, for me, I've got, and if you're watching on YouTube, you can see it. Actually, one of my players isn't playing. So I had Jorge Soler and Justin Steele, but there it is. There it is right there. So we've got more than half a walk for Jorge Soler and less than half a strikeout for Nico Horner. That's my play for today. $20 to win 85. So download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB, all lowercase, for a first deposit match up to $100. That's code LOCKEDONMLB on Prize Picks for a deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. All right, here we go. We're going to talk about how the Giants could be a second half team, will have to be a second half team if they want to get to where they want to go, because we're almost done with the first half. I'm not counting the All-Star break as the first half. I'm counting literally 81 games as half of the season because that's what it is. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Everydayers, tomorrow we will be breaking down game 1 of this critical 4-game series with the Giants going with their patchwork pitching efforts, and it's not really their fault. They've got good pitchers. There's a lot of them that are hurt, and with going up against Justin Steele, who's kind of the Cubs' answer to Logan Webb. So good luck, but the righty bats, they're gonna have to go off against Steele guys like Slater, who's gotten hotter. So anyway, reminder, you can catch every pitch of the Giants' hometown broadcast with Sirius XM. Just download the SXM app and search the word Giants. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Do you have to turn down the volume with all of that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So, the Giants are going to have to be a second-half team because the first half is almost over. They do have a lot of guys who are on their way back from injuries. They had Lamont Wade Jr., Blake Snell, and Robbie Ray all participate in the same AAA rehab game the other day. So that is a huge deal. And apparently Alex Cobb is doing well. Kyle Harrison is throwing out to 90 feet, or he was over the weekend. So a lot of guys are on their way back. And I mean, if you just look at the injured list for this club, with Jung-Hoo Lee not coming back, out for the season, Lamont Wade Jr., Mike Yastrzemski, Alex Cobb, Kyle Harrison, Robbie Ray, Blake Snell, Keaton Wynn, Tristan Beck, Tom Murphy. It's a long list, and there's some real talent mixed in there, especially on the rotation side. When you look at Snell, Ray, Harrison, Cobb, I mean, that is a good foursome of a major league starting rotation, and they're all on the injured list. So if you add that to Webb and Hicks, then you're looking at a much, much different team. Imagine if they could go Webb, Snell. I know Snell hasn't pitched well, but I'm still giving him that number 2 spot. Hicks, Robbie Ray, and Kyle Harrison and Alex Cobb. I mean, I don't know how exactly they break that down because that would be 6 guys. But then Keaton Wynn could pitch out of the bullpen. Tristan Beck could come back and pitch out of the bullpen. So there's probably not going to be a point when everybody's healthy. But at the same time, just getting some of those guys back. And then on the offensive side, Lamont Wade Jr. was just such a good player when he was healthy. And so that strained hamstring just really kind of set them back from that leadoff spot. I know Brett Wisely has done a nice job kind of filling in, but at the same time, Wade had the major's highest on-base percentage by a ton, almost a 500 on-base percentage. And then Yaz, it's just like their outfield is kind of thin as it is. And so right now you're looking at Ramos is playing in center. His breakout is a big deal, and we've talked about it a lot, but you've got Michael Conforto really struggling in left, and then Luis Matos kind of projected as the starter in right, but he struggled so much that they went even with just Austin Slater to start the game against a righty in the finale in St. Louis. So they are banged up, and I think the pitching, like if they can actually get those guys back, if they can actually have a starting rotation that features Webb, Snell, Hicks, Robbie Ray, Alex Cobb, Kyle Harrison, like that would give them a chance to win every day. But as it is now, you're basically going to be looking at like what every 3 out of 5 games when it's not Webb or Hicks. And then, like I said, you're just not going to win every time it's Webb and Hicks, and they didn't. And that is what really gets you. And it puts a lot of pressure on Logan Webb and Jordan Hicks to be perfect. And right now, they just not Webb and Hicks, but the Giants just haven't been anywhere near perfect. And I continue to say, like, their team ERA ranks 25th out of 30 teams at 4.53. And so, and like, if we look, what did I say? The last 9 games. So when did that start? That was starting. I'm going to bet you that they're dead last in the last, since the 14th. If they're not last, the Rockies are going to be last, and the Giants will be like second to last. Since the 14th of June, the Giants' ERA is, guess what? Second to last, with the Rockies last. Exactly what I said. 6.04 Giants ERA in the last. I mean, it's kind of a random cherry-picked sample of their last 9 games. But yeah, it's just going to be hard to win when you have an ERA of 6.04. And the Rockies, for what it's worth, in case you were wondering, are at 660 over that span. But for the Giants, over that span, they're allowing a batting average on balls in play of 335, which is the fifth highest. Their left on base percentage, they've just had a hard time stranding runners like all season. 66%, which is the fifth lowest. So that's a bad combination when you're allowing a lot of hits on balls in play and you're also not stranding the base runners you do allow. And then their home run rate, home runs per 9 innings, is fourth highest at 1.66. So home run to fly ball ratio is the highest in the sport at 17.9%. So right now, when the ball goes in the air, over the last 9 games, it's a homer almost 18% of the time. And that's a good way to allow some runs. So coming home is a better formula for not allowing homers, and that's been one of their bugaboos recently during this little stretch. I mean, yeah, so that's why this series is so big, and then you're going to play the Dodgers, and you almost like always assume you're going to lose that series, even if it's at home, and then you go play the Braves on the road, the Guardians on the road, and then you play Blue Jays and Twins. With those teams, every major league team has talent, but it's just not easy sledding. But I will say this, the schedule does soften up after the All-Star break. It starts with 3 at Colorado. I know at Colorado is always unpredictable. And then here's the tough part, 4 at LA, but then 4 at home against the Rockies. Then you get the Oakland A's at home. Then you get the Reds and Nationals on the road. Then you get the Tigers at home. You do play the Braves for 4 at home, but then it's more Oakland A's. Then it's White Sox. So that's kind of the easier patch of the schedule. So they're really going to have to take advantage, and hopefully they have their pitchers back like Snell and Robbie Ray and Alex Cobb and Kyle Harrison for that stretch, because they're going to need it. Because I still am holding out hope. There's plenty of examples in history of teams having a record like the Giants have now, but going on and having a stronger finish to the season. And they've certainly underperformed, I would say, and it has a ton to do with injuries. Plain and simple. I'm not usually one to blame injuries too much, but like they've been ravaged by injuries. There's just no doubt about it. So coming up in just a minute, we're gonna turn the page and discuss something that is definitely contributing to the Giants, record and problems winning games right now, and that is the stolen base differential. They've got one of the best catchers in the league in terms of pop times, the quickness with which he, from the time he receives the ball to the time he gets it down to second base, and yet they've allowed just an absurd amount of steals, and they're not stealing bases themselves. So we'll look at their stolen base differential and discuss what it means in just a minute. And before we do, today's episode is brought to you in part by Supply House. Get supplies from the site that's made for the skilled trades. SupplyHouse.com. SupplyHouse.com is the reliable way to order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Shop a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands and get your order delivered right to your door with fast shipping from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Get expert support and industry-leading service from the friendliest folks in the business and talk to a real person every time. Pros in the skilled trades can get a competitive edge by joining SupplyHouse.com's free TradeMaster program. Every TradeMaster gets access to a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Join the thousands of trade pros already benefiting from their free membership at SupplyHouse.com/TM and order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies from anywhere with just a few clicks at SupplyHouse.com. All right, here we go. We're going to get into the absurd stolen base run differential allowed slash taken by the Giants. I mean, it's just crazy. And it really stood out in this series, really on the road trip. The Cubs were running wild. The Cardinals were running wild. Like teams have just figured out you can run wild on the Giants, even despite Patrick Bailey. So this is something I need to dive more into and will at some point because they have this info up on Baseball Savant, like kind of StatCast based data about pitchers, like, and how like they're able to quantify now like when a base is stolen on a pitcher versus on a catcher. And so I want to see, because the Giants pitchers have to be like collectively ranked. Like we're probably going to see, when I'm looking at individual names, there's just going to be tons of Giants at the worst in terms of kind of their time to home plate. And when you look at steal, I just want to dive into those numbers. But what I have now is simply the differential between, or I have the total steals they've allowed, the total steals they have. And so we'll get into that. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Every dayers tomorrow, breaking down this big game one. You know, set yourself up, you know, end this losing streak, set yourself up for a good series by taking down an ace when you've got a bullpen game, and that could go a long way for kind of hopefully having a good series ahead of the Dodgers coming into town. A reminder, you can catch every pitch of the Giants' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM. Just download the SXM app and search the word Giants. Also, right after the game, check out Postcast with Eric Engel on Locked On Sports San Francisco on YouTube. So he does it after pretty much every Giants game, also after every Warriors game, 49ers game. So it's totally worth subscribing to, hitting the bell notification. And then for Giants games, that show then goes on to the Locked On Giants podcast feed, which if you're familiar with the show at all, you've probably noticed. But if you're new to the show, that is just something additional that we do here for you. So anyway, getting to the numbers, the differential here. Let me just start off with the differential. The Giants stolen base differential, meaning steals allowed, no, steals like stolen bases by the Giants minus stolen bases allowed. And they're at minus 61. The next closest team is at minus 28. So the Giants are more than twice as bad as the next closest team in this category. And that just really, really stands out. I mean, when you have something so extreme, it stands out. And the thing is, I haven't looked at last year, but this was a problem last year too. They weren't a running team, and they, you know, teams kind of ran on them. And so, and then when you add to add that information with the fact that they have one of the better throwing in terms of at least pop times, accuracy is sometimes more of a question with Patrick Bailey, but a lot of the times he just doesn't have a chance. He just doesn't have a chance because the pitchers are slow to the plate. You know, certain guys, Camilo Duvall, like there's just no chance. Like you can just run, and we're always seeing first and third, no matter how many outs, the team is just taken off for second, and the Giants don't even make a throw. They just, most of the time, they don't even make a throw. And I've seen the Giants try to do it where they try to steal second, and the catchers will throw it and throw them out. So it's unbelievable how bad they are at this. And so, yeah, so stolen bases total, the Giants, so they've allowed the most steals in the major leagues with at 86, but yeah, 86 allowed, and stolen, they have a grand total of 25. 86 allowed, 25 taken. So 86 is the most, and I want to sort this by sort this by how many have they stolen and where does that rank? They've stolen 25. So they've allowed the most, and they've stolen the fewest. 25 steals is the fewest in the sport. So anytime you see something like this where you're in the same category leading the league, I mean, like you're last in both. And so the differential is obviously last, but it's last by more than 2 times the next closest team. And so I'm tempted in a way to look at the Giants base running, this like Fangraphs metric called BSR, and it's just a base running metric in general. And the Giants are only at minus 1.9 runs above average, so just a couple runs below average in terms of base running, and that does factor in steals. I'm assuming they haven't stolen a lot of bases, but they also probably haven't been caught many times either. So they have 25 steals. They've only been caught 10 times, which is not the lowest, but still, that's a 25 out of 35 is a success rate of 71.4%. So even that, it's not a great success rate. The Reds, for example, have 105 steals and have been caught 38 times. They lead the league with, actually, no, 108 steals, sorry, and caught 26 times. The Brewers have 107 steals and have been caught 19 times. So they've been caught only 9 more times than the Giants, and yet they have 107 steals compared to the Giants' 25. So it's just bad. And in terms of caught stealings by the Giants, they they have allowed, as I said, they have allowed 85 steals, and they have caught runners stealing 15 times, and that 15 is like middle of the pack. It's tied for 16th. So there's just no sugarcoating it. This is just such an area of deficiency. They're also first in passed balls, and they are in the middle of the pack in wild pitches. But passed balls, I mean, that's Patrick Bailey's it's not his greatest strength. He does allow some passed balls. And I'm not saying he's a bad catcher, because I'll say this over and over till I'm blue in the face, that framing is way more important than any of this other stuff, because the count makes such an impact on an at-bat. And so I think steals and all that is kind of that's possibly why they don't put too much of an emphasis on it. But when it's this stark, there's no doubt it's hurt them. There's no doubt. I mean, we saw it over the weekend. They were just running wild on the Giants. So they need to clean it up, but it's not something that's easy to clean up in the middle of a season, because you've got to alter your mechanics. You've got to, and then with the pitch clock and the limits on pickoffs and all that, it makes it even harder. Used to be, you could just hold the runner, but Giants have done a poor job, simply put, like preparing for this on both sides of the ball, from a pitching perspective, but also from a base running perspective. Because how come teams can run wild on one of the best throwing catchers in the league, at least in terms of quickness, from the time he catches it to the time he gets it down in the area of second? When you're the Giants, you can't run at all. Even when they've got fast guys on the bases, they're not going anywhere. So I just don't understand this. And I don't really have any words to explain. Like, I want to say they got to improve, but I don't know that they will. And so it could just be one of the things that leads to their downfall. So, I'd like to see somebody ask Farhan Zaidi about this. And I think he would say it's a problem and they have to fix it. But it's like, okay, well, fix it. Do something about it. I don't know. I'm not going to be able to fix it. You got to fix it. So anyway, on that note, that is all the time we have for today. Thanks again for making Locked on Giants your first listen every day. Every day is tomorrow, breaking down a critical Game 1 against the Cubs. A reminder, you can catch every pitch of the Giants' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM. Just download the SXM app and search the word Giants. Locked On has also launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. And now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7. Covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today, now available on the free Fire TV channels app. Once again, my name is Ben Kaspick. Check me out on Twitter at Ben Kaspick, Kaspick. If you like this show, please consider rating it or leaving a review. It helps me out so much. So thank you in advance, and thank you to everyone who's done so already. Can't wait to be with you again tomorrow. Got to end this losing streak. Thanks again for listening. You are now Locked on Giants.